All right, so I'm now at section 3, which is women, not men. And we'll come back to this over these next two lectures about peace, because it's going to be clear from what we've seen in the first 5, whatever sort of effectively weeks of this material, and you will see in the next 5 or so weeks material to come, that we know very well what the patriarchy can and does do. And do we need to have yet more examples? I mean, do we need more proof? Is the last 2,000 years of Western history not enough for us to see that slavery of the other, the suppression of women, of people who don't identify as being heterosexual or with the gender they're born to the brutalizing of the planet and the rise of capitalism and consumption, the vaulting of money over everything, apparently everything else, education, health, happiness, that all of these things are interlinked. I mean, what part of this don't we get? I mean, aren't we? Isn't that enough? Are we not done? Do people really need more examples of how damaging this concept of strength is? That the myths of masculinity that we've had, say, in the last 500 years, like looking at, because we were just looking at Henry V. When I aim at the patriarchy here, I'm not necessarily aiming at men, but at anyone who buys into this kind of system of abuse. So people will say, well, how is it possible for women to, look at Republican women or gun-loving women and who say, my strength is in my gun. It's like, yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be a man to buy into this system. In fact, I think we all have to buy into this thing, which means that we all can make it stop. Are there other ways? Yes, there are other ways. Can we do things differently? Yes, we can do things differently. Is this kind of system of abuse of pretty much everything and everybody, except for the people who are at the very center of the system? And even then, we could argue, as has been argued, that what I've been arguing all along, basically, is that the winners get to win, but the people who lose, and that's everybody else, it's mostly losers. A system that has, say, 1%, that counts itself to have 1% winners or 20% winners, is not at all a workable system. If people, graduated with degrees and we said, well, you got a fifth of all your answers right, you passed a fifth of your classes, people wouldn't get degrees. So how is it that, with 20% of the people basically being winners and everybody else is being promised a chance to be a winner, that's a successful system? Anyway, so let's consider a different kind of strength, which is what I think Lobakia is saying. And this, again, I return to Takla here, whose story is crucial to the operating of the text. When her son is killed, she has to make this incredible sacrifice of burying the pain and the boy, right? And she is the pivot of the entire narrative. And so when she's setting up her store, and her daughter, Rita, who has just lost her brother, cannot proceed because the grief is too much. It takes everything she has to say to her, Rita, stop crying. And it's obvious she's herself on the verge of tears. It's a very touching scene. And it's so compressed. It's so elegant. It's so minimalist. There's not a lot of, it's just like we cannot be seen to cry. If we're seen to cry, the story will come out and then there'll be a war and that'll be it. It'll just multiply everybody's pain. It'll multiply this misery times 20 or 100. I cannot really imagine. Actually, I can't imagine this kind of strength, really. To swallow the death of the youngest child, the youngest of the villagers that we get to know, because we get to know this particular character, and you have to get to know, if the character's death is going to be meaningful, you got to get to know them, right? A true innocent. And this innocent, justice, essentially, for this innocent, there really is no such thing as justice in this case. He was killed. That's it. There's nobody to hold accountable because it was it was like a battlefield accident. It's like there was a battlefield, don't get near it. You were near it, you got shot. there's nobody to get reparation from. And anyway, it's not going to bring back the person, right? And this is the kind of magic realism where this is the thing about magic realism. You think, oh, well, the dead will come back. It's like, no, that's not how this works, right? You get these little things. And this is the point about a lot of the film, is that there are miraculous things that we do, everybody does, on a daily basis. Sometimes the miraculous thing is, well, usually it has to do with helping somebody. That you do a little tiny thing, and the person's like, oh, thank you. That helped me. And you're like, oh, that wasn't hard. And then you're like, well, I can do that again. Okay. So this is what a sacrifice. When the Eastern European, because I don't want to, are they Russian? I mean, my memory is that they are given Russian names, appear. It looks as though there's going to be a problem with these contested beauty myths. And Libacki is extremely good about this. I mean, she especially in Caramel, her earlier film, oh boy, she's right on about the beauty. She gets to the beauty stuff right away. And so that's why this next clip is so well done, where she takes it head on. It's like, you think the women are going to lose it. They're going to, because they're going to bring in these conventionally pretty women who are blonde and thin, and of course they have to smoke because they're hungry all the time, and which Libacki points to. They smoke and drink, basically. That's it, you think, oh well, these basically anorexic looking. As one of the villagers says, what do they eat? It's like, yeah, they don't. These sort of fake blondes who arrive, who seem to be unable to do anything except sleep and get stoned. I mean, basically that's sort of like, that's what they've got the energy for. Whereas the women in the village are working women, are built like people who are working physically all day have to be built. You have to have enough strength to get up and move around. You have to be. These are tough. This is a tough way to live, and they're living in this tough environment. It's hot, and so you got to have strength. You got to have physical strength. So look at now this little clip that I made cut for us of the baths. Okay, so look at that.
نو خبز نو بريد نو شجر، يعني ما بتاكلش خبز بالمرة لا ليكي عفاكم اسم الله عليكم اسم الله عفاكم اسم الله نو صوص بالمرة، ماشي شوكة يا حبيبي، كعك وفطايم ما في شيء. ليه ما بتاكل شيء؟ يخرب ذوقك، كيفاش بقعد اخلك كسايدة؟ ما بعرف يا عمي، شو بدك بالحكي؟ الخبز بقيت على القالب غير شكل.
Okay, so now this is what's great about this is look at the way it begins. It starts off with her just scanning along the legs. They're showing, first of all, there's open water, which in itself is something of a miracle. And because all the men in the village, like no matter like from the little 6-year-old to the oldest guy, is coming to fill basically the well or the watering hole basically for these women. Because so everybody, all the men have fallen in love with this sort of this completely unrealistic version of this beauty myth. And I'm when I use the word beauty myth, I'm really referring here specifically to Naomi Wolf's book of the same name, The Beauty Myth, which was published in 1990. And this is still one of the best books I've read about the daily integration. This is sort of integration of how women are told they should look, and despite all of the stuff in the last, say, 5 years about not body shaming and all of that, blah, blah, blah. It's like I still see a beauty industry out there which is running full throttle. It doesn't seem to be any slowing down of that. In fact, maybe it's even speeding up because it's like, well, now we can really target anybody of any size, of any shape, and we'll get them. Even if they're not, like, it doesn't matter. Even if they don't fit into this particular model, we'll get them. So I'm not encouraged. I mean, it's better, I suppose, than it was, but still. So the beauty myth is that basically, I have yet to meet, I think I probably met 2, maybe 3 women on the planet who don't care what men or women think about how they look. Well, I've met more. I've actually met more. I've met a couple of young women, but mostly the women I've met who don't care are older, and I mean they're in their 50s, so they're not 20 or 25 or something like that. And I don't mean that you don't care about looking nice or being clean or wanting to be presentable, as we used to say. I mean that they don't care whether or not they're sexually attractive or appealing to men. It's like, whatever, it's like, no, not interested, not playing that game, not interested, don't care. Yes, I'm going to wear clothes. I wear clothes I like. I wear colors I like. That's it. Just over makeup. No, don't need it. Like, why would I wear that? High heel shoes. Well, how come? They're hard to walk in. No, I'm not doing that. And it's like, well, let's give this a try, because if this is what it takes for men to bring men in, well, maybe you don't want to bring those men in. Like, let's not have that. Okay, so Naomi Wolf is very good about this, and but what Labaki does here is say, look at these legs. So she shows, the legs of the blondes, and they're not blondes, right? You can see they're bottle blondes, which is part of the point, that they're artificial constructs. So you see their legs, and all these thin, pale legs, and then you get to the legs of the village women, and they're stocky. They've got real calves and they've got weight, and they're not these little thin, non-working. They work. They're prostitutes. They're working. It's hard work. It's brutally hard, but these are women who actually have to live and have to physically work, and that is the difference. And the body types alone are beautifully emphasized by this pan along the waterline as they sit there. And then, as I say, there's the second visit where the Russian women are like, okay, we are converted, and they make common cause with the women of the village, and then they rather hilariously dispose of their impresario, who is actually really a pimp, and they just are like, okay, he's finished. And it's going to take not just the miracle of the women, but it's also going to take the agreement here of the 2 religious men who are good representatives. I mean, they're actually it's a very kind representation of religion here. Yeah, okay. I don't buy it, but it's magic. Okay.